go. So, ladies, what is going on?
Just that he needs to get it together.
Sick of that. I am sick of it.
Something is seriously wrong with you.
Why is he still there?
She shouldn't be near Congress.
You need an exorcism because I don't know what is wrong with you people.
It was so powerful.
And I really wish everybody would stop bowing down to this.
What is he talking about? This makes no sense.
They know they are not the oppressed party, but they love being the superior ones and they want to flaunt it.
So it was always made political, particularly for people of color and the LGBTQ population.
We end off every episode with a cockroach. This episode's cockroach.
Everything.
Everything?
All the things are going on.
All the things?
Mm-hmm.
What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association, and I host the only online conversation in the world for dads and fathers that is sponsored by Dove Men Care. It's also co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization, and through that collaboration last year, I was able to reach out with a team to over 100 fathers and dads around the world. There's always like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. It's Saturday night, a little bit later than usual. Sorry for the technical difficulties. It's all on Dr. Vibe's shiny head. So I own it. I own it today. But you know what? It's Saturday night and the people are already piled in. So let's get it going. You know, it's State of Things with Aisha and Jill. And we have a special guest tonight. And we're going to get to them in just a moment. But let's bring up Aisha and Jill. How you doing?
Hi.
Good. How's the week been? A very calm week in the world. Jill, we're not hearing you. Yeah, your microphone is scratchy. No, we're not hearing you. You may need to log out. Oh, hold on.
I think I should be here, but...
Yep.
Yeah, but it's a little of a... Okay. Oh, every time you move it...
We're getting static, yeah.
We're getting... Okay, so we'll let Jill work out her technical challenges. Aisha, what's been going on in your world?
Not much really, just like keeping track of what's going on in the news and everything, and keeping up with family. That's all that my family's talking about right now in our family chat, our text chat, is just what's been going on in the world. So but it was a pretty low-key week.
All right, good stuff. Jill, do we have you back?
I hope so.
Yay! There we go. There's the Jill Jones we know and absolutely love. What's been going on in your world, Jill?
Just the same normal stuff that I do, through the week, and then just really, just watching what's been going on in the Ukraine has been pretty sort of grabbed my focus the last few days.
Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. And we have a special guest from my side of the border who is gives a lot of commentary, and she did some comments last week during the live conversation. We asked her if she had time to jump in. She is here. Christy White, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm outstanding. What's been going on?
Not much, just like everybody else. I think our whole family has really been just kind of keeping an eye on what's going on in the world right now.
Excellent. And can you share a little background about yourself for those who may not know about you?
Absolutely. I'm an Indigenous female. I'm also a children's author and book publisher from Oneida Nation of the Thames, which is here in Canada. I am a Canuck and happy to be with these lovely women tonight.
Are you ready for their silos?
Oh, I'm ready.
Well, I know. Well, it's not the first time you've been here with us, so you know, and you're a regular fan or a contributor, so you know what we're getting ourselves into tonight. So
absolutely,
thanks and shout out to everyone who is here. Hey, Jen Myers, good to see you. Christina, good to see you also. Black Beauty, Christina, Jill, Dr. Vibe, and Jill. So let's get at, well, if we didn't talk about this subject first, you would probably be mad at us. So let's get it right going, family. Ukraine.
Well, well, um, I have no, you know what? I just, every time I like turn on the news, and I've really kept it on, all I can say to myself is punk Putin. He just, it, I don't think that we ever assumed he was not necessarily going to invade. He's trying to go as far as he possibly can. Um, what baffles me is the response of the rest of the world. The sanctions apparently aren't going to work. And like I heard someone say this morning, he doesn't care about the consequences. He really doesn't. And that's why he keeps going further and further and further. And at some point, the NATO members are going to have to join in and do something, because the people of Ukraine are out there fighting with baseballs and firecrackers. And they need weaponry. They need support. They just don't have the numbers. And how many of their military have already been killed in these strikes? So it's a very sad place. And I think the part that broke my heart watching this on the news was the infants, the newborns being cared for in that subway, the thing
Right.
the subway. And it's like, it really, and watching people flee, it really is it's really tragic that one man's maniacal sense of overimportance is leading to other people being hurt, homeless, destitute.
Anyone wants to follow up?
I don't necessarily think that that what's going on is a losing battle for the Ukrainians. I know that I would have to say, now remember, I told you guys that I thought the invasion was going to happen after the Olympics, and it did. And I still feel in my gut that I do think Putin cares. I think he cares a lot more than people, because if he didn't, he wouldn't be. These are like really almost emotional moves. He's attacking, trying to bring something back to 1975 for legacy purposes, they say. But you have to really sit and think, what's the urgency? He's only 68 or 69 years old. What's happening that he wants this? I mean, what's the impetus to push so feverishly at this point? So quite possibly there is a physical ailment going on. He's working with a limited amount of time. I don't know. There's also the other consideration that he was given some information from Donald Trump, and he only has a certain amount of window of time to go in and jack up Ukraine, because we know that Donald Trump helped to facilitate the first disembowelment of Ukraine by getting rid of the ambassadors and sort of disrupting that whole thing. So we know that that's where part of the disembowelment started. And so there's really a short window of time before Joe Biden's been in office, a year and a half, not even a half of that. It's been a year and 2 months. So a year and 1 month. So what could possibly have been structured, or the infrastructure getting reconfigured? It's very limited that really changed that much. So he's got a limited amount of time to do what the plan was when they all helped get Donald Trump elected here. That was the plan to take over the world and to be this leader of the world, which, Trump could care less about that. As long as he had his buildings and his money, he was going to be fine. I don't think he ever cared to run the world, but he was going to help somebody else do it. And I also think that the intel that they were getting, the White House seems to be actually quite accurate, that they were sort of step by step. And if what we're still hearing right now, which is that there's 3 to 4 days worth of missiles and a couple of, allocations of ammunitions, and that people were running out of gas and didn't have any like food, and with the Russian military. So it's quite possible. And also, I don't think they've gauged on the response of the Russian people standing up against him, because now there's trouble in his own home country. And, we shall see. I'm not saying that, that the Ukrainians are ahead of the game completely, but I do feel that with Germany sending over what they're going to be sending, I think 1,000 tanks or something, we're sending some other things as well. All the EU countries, NATO countries have started to subtly pitch in. And I do think sanctions will work, but I don't think you will feel them immediately. It's going to be some time. And once they figure out how to jimmy that SWIFT code stuff, it's going to do something. Let's put it this way. Abramovich signed over freaking Chelsea, his team, of his football team in England, to what were the polite words that he used? Wasn't like he gave them up, but they're sort of being held by like a charity kind of division, because he doesn't want his assets frozen. They said that all billionaires of the oligarchs lost $32 billion just yesterday alone. There's a whole list in Business Insider about that. So, yeah, I don't know. I think we're going to have to really watch and see. As it is tonight, people in Kyiv were learning how to make Molotov cocktails, all citizens, every age group. Because remember, if you have an 18-year-old son or older, they are not allowed to leave the country. So if you were trying to leave at this point, that's not going to happen. So a lot of people, I believe, are going to stand by their loved ones and stand there, and they're going to fight. And that passion, you can't ever take for granted. It's going to be interesting to see what they bomb and what they do up against these maniacs.
Christy?
Well, I wanted to share a story actually with everybody about this scarf I have on. And a lot of Indigenous females, we adorn these scarves on our traditional outfits. Like I'm a jingle dress dancer and I have one in like red and stuff like that. And a lot of Indigenous females across Turtle Island are sporting them right now because they are actually a Ukrainian scarf from the women. And that was the first trade that Indigenous women had with the Ukrainian, especially the Ukrainian women. So when we actually, if you look up Indigenous stuff, when you hear anything about a kokum scarf, which is like a grandmother's scarf, these are the scarves we're talking about. And if you just look up Ukrainian scarves, which is absolutely beautiful. And I mean, so we have this connection and this already agreement with the Ukraine. So, I mean, our people right now are just really, really hurting for them, knowing that, I mean, there's people literally just picking up whatever they can to defend themselves and hoping to make it out alive. Like, we couldn't even imagine what they're going through. And our hearts are with all of them over there.
Yes.
Is it too little, too late from the West?
I don't think so. On one hand, I think that there's more that we probably can do, and that they're going to rely on intelligence and continue to monitor the situation and ratchet up the sanctions. I mean, like now they just ratcheted them up today, so that the bank now it's going to directly affect the banks, and Putin, his money is going to directly affect him monetarily. But I also wonder what American Putin shared with him. I mean, Donald Trump. Because remember, we still have to deal with the fact that that man took classified information from the White House.
Right.
We don't know if he shared it with Putin yet, but he sounds like when he gets on these news shows that he talks to him every day. So he has already disclosed, I am 100% certain, information about our capabilities on certain things. Thank God Joe Biden did that initially when he first was inaugurated, where he made sure that Trump doesn't get any intel.
Right.
Because imagine if he was still getting intel, we would be in for a world of hurt. because
My
he would be
concern-
telling everything. He'd be like
My-
diarrhea of the mouth,
Right.
telling everything.
My thing is with him having that information and the tariffs, I agree. I don't think it's going to work because knowing Putin and what we know about him, that's almost like thinking he wouldn't have never thought that through. And I think that's a really silly stance for, I mean, the whole world to be taking. The fact that he had this inside information, he planned this out, and I'm sure he absolutely knew that the other countries were going to start throwing this stuff at him, and he was ready. Whether they locked down bank accounts, again, the way he's gone about it, I think he planned for that. I think he knew what they were going to do, and I think he's been one step ahead. So I'm not so sure this whole thing on tariffs is going to work because I think he was already prepared for it.
I think he's prepared, but I don't think the billionaires are prepared. I think the billionaires are like, okay, I've benefited from having a relationship with Vladimir Putin. However, when people start freezing your money, the big question is if it's ever unfrozen. Do you see that? That's the kooky part here. If they're taking people's things, they want, some people in America want their children deported. Some people want some of the citizenship that was given to Russians in Ukraine. They want them sent back. I mean, that's what I saw on when the finance last year, their past finance minister was talking about it. They want them sent back. People here too want their children sent back, taken out of boarding schools, all the money stopped. It can be done. The problem is that to freeze money, you sometimes freeze the money of people who are actually living there and, trying to do whatever they can. But as it is, they can't fly out. If anything, they've got to walk out. It's definitely really difficult. And for sure, he's thought about it just like he thought about surrounding Chernobyl with the toxic waste and holding that over everybody's heads. The biggest problem here is that, you can allow, it's like that movie with Farrah Fawcett and the burning bed. Did y'all see that?
Yeah.
There was a time when she finally had to light the match. And I know it's a scary thing to think about, but it's like sometimes when a bear comes at you, you've got to be bigger than the bear. You have to. It's really frightening what he's pulling, but are we going to be at the mercy of this crazy person for how long? It's just like not right. I mean, putting ice on them and going and moving them out shouldn't be too difficult, but of course they won't do it. I mean, but and more importantly, they need to go and zip up all those senators who went to Russia. They should not be receiving any intel. And they need to start, Merrick Garland and them need to start protecting this country like they give up about it, because they don't. I'm really pissed off. They don't act like they do. Because your first thought would be like, this is treason. This man, the reason he has information to know all of this is because it's been shared with him. And for all we know, they're talking on their cell phones right now, because we don't know if even our crew of people like our FBI or CIA, do they belong to us or who do they belong to? The right wing, the left, it's ridiculous anymore. So they better get on the good foot, because people are not going to tolerate this. And for those that are up here, they said 25 to 40% of Republicans are supporters of Putin. That is frightening. That's like saying during World War II that most of the people in this country who were Republicans were supporters of Hitler, or we had people who were here supporters of Joseph Stalin. This is his legacy. That is who Putin is going to fall under, those lines,
Jill, Aisha, I want to catch up with the comments before it gets way too far. So just give me a second here. So Ira's saying, wow, straight for the juggler right off the bat. Well, if you're the first, this is what we do. So get ready. William saying, just stopping by to say hello, have a great conversation. Black Beauty. Hi, Jen, Christy, and everyone else tuned in. Black Beauty doesn't hold back. For Ukraine, Putin is a real POS. If you don't know what that means, go Google it. Ira Timothy, yes, I guess responding to if it's too late, saying never. The blonde orange did never did things straight in the first place. And
Right.
also Ira saying Putin needs to be put out, and then a Russian bear at that. Aisha,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Well, remember too, Joe Biden was at the table in the room when the Obama administration was trying to figure out how to handle Osama bin Laden, and it was very calculated, very tactful expedition that they went on. They were in and out, okay, and so I would suspect that right now, in the what's that room called that they go into, the war room.
Yeah, it is.
Situation room or war room?
Situation
Room, yes.
Okay.
So in the situation room, I'm sure that they are working to plan out how do we go if we have to go in, how do we go in and get out? Because in order to do that, remember they've got to present this in the United States side. They've got to present it to Congress. Congress has to vote on it for him to go in. So they've got it. They're back there. I'm sure
They would
building
call
the
him. We have too many people who are Putin supporters, like that Jordan, whatever, from Ohio. That's the problem. We've got traitors in our midst, and they need to be actually thrown into Guantanamo while we're dealing with this.
We do, but see, the Senate doesn't vote on this. The House does because it's
Them
financial.
too, but them
House,
too.
But we do have a majority, and there are some Republicans that will come to that side. Those aren't the ones that are getting all the air.
It doesn't. My point is, they don't need to be privy to hearing anything. They are
No, they
not.
don't. They
They're
don't hear anything.
compromised.
They don't have to hear everything, but they do have to vote. I mean, that's just how
I
it
know,
is.
but they're
Go to war.
compromised,
So
and because our stupid AG has taken so long, we're getting buried deeper and deeper.
Right, but if they do a covert
Hasn't been doing
like
job.
Osama bin Laden, they really don't need the vote of Congress. They go in and they do it and they get out. And so that should be the target. Putin is also making some very sloppy mistakes here, because when people in his own administration are kind of like, dude, what are you doing? When he went off the rails the other day, and the way he talked to that guy that works with him, that guy that he just was like really just belittled every little bit of him. It became obvious to people around in that circle, like this man has really lost it. And so,
And did you notice the changing of the suits in that speech?
Yeah.
What the heck? How many dress changes did he take? That filming must have gone on for days. Or you have to think, then why did he change in the middle each time to change clothes? What was he doing? Does he sweat really badly? Okay, I don't know. In the lights, or was this a whole week long performance of filming? And there was definitely no one on continuity because he literally was changing clothes in the middle of this. It was like watching like a diary.
You know, someone made an observation on one of the news shows that that looking at him physically, even physically, he looks different. And I'm wondering if he's got some health issues that he's deciding that now's the time I have to do this.
Prednisone face. Everybody's saying he has moon face.
Yes.
Moon face. Prednisone face. It's not, or that's a double, because he's got moon face like he's on steroids. He looks like, that's that thing, And some people have been like, well, he gets fillers and Botox. Yeah, I get that, but then
it's moon face.
It's moon face.
If you've ever had it, you know what it is.
I've had it.
Me too.
Yeah, I totally had it. So, and I think you guys might even remember it, but I had it when I came out of the hospital, from an asthma attack. So there's something that's going on with him, and also really weird thing that, I always talk a little bit about astrologists that have been saying things. There've been a few astrologers talking about this happening because Pluto is in its return. And this is the time when our country was formed, based upon the formations right now are almost the same as 1776, believe it or not, the Pluto placement, which kind of wild. But the interesting thing, and it's so interesting that Joe Biden is the person in place for this. He is a Scorpio. Vladimir Putin has a Scorpio ascendant, meaning he presents like he's sneaky and shady, but he's a Libran. Librans have a hell of a time making a decision. That's why that jacket and the changing the clothes happened, y'all. That man was like, I think I like the red better, or maybe the blue. That's when you know it's a Libran. But because the Scorpio would have played it like cool and kept a black jacket on and just done his thing and out. What's interesting is that
Libra part. I'm a Libra. I can never decide.
The thing is that the formations that are happening, Jupiter actually is in a very lucky placement for Putin at the moment. But just because it's lucky for him, it happens to be lucky for Biden as well. Remember, the Ides of March are coming. So if you guys know, that's always a very weird time. And war tends to be around March. Most times it goes back to Shakespearean times. Shakespeare wrote about the Ides of March. So, and Mars, because it's a very time of planetary, violence and stuff. But it shifts into Biden's placement around March 4th. So let's see, because most of the intel is saying that if Ukraine can hold off for 10 days, the tides could change.
That's I don't know. I'll let Christine in just a moment just catch up with some more comments. Ira says it could be that Putin has been watching the West and the slow response that North America has had to the trucker protests and allowed it to go on for so long, may have thinking him as a sign of weakness, especially when some politicians sided with the convoy. So he may be thinking more bold about this attack he has committed. Christina's saying America was focused on brown people, that the Putin was able to plan all of this. I wonder if 45 and him were in alliance the whole time. Wonder?
Of course they were.
Tila. So interesting that many on the far right in this country think of Putin as a hero right now. Truly sick.
Here's the thing with this. They're just trying to be contrary. Okay?
People like him. They like his strength.
They like
he's a man to them,
but they're also trying to be contrary. It's like whatever is going to create problems for Biden, they love it. Whatever is going to because even the fact that they don't want the refugees here makes me kind of like, okay, so you don't want ethnic whites here either. It's like you got mad with the Syrians, you got mad with the Afghans, got mad with the Latino population coming in, mad with the Haitians coming in. But now they're just kind of like, yeah, nobody but Americans coming in.
It's not, what it's that Americans don't understand their history. A lot of people don't realize that when back in the day, when folks couldn't get into Nova Scotia, that they actually immigrated all the way down and landed in where? New Orleans. I mean, little things like that. We don't understand our history, and we don't get it because this country has never connected the dots of, everybody was on a boat and then somebody said, it's not safe today. Let's go over here. They don't do that. They don't understand it. It's been so cut and dried, and this is what it says in a really weird way. Maybe school doesn't need to teach history at all anymore because they didn't do a really good job in the first place. I mean, I'll be really honest with you. We can do it better with podcasts and being sitting around having Christy that share the native stories, and they go on and on and on. You get more truth.
As it is, they're cutting our books up into paper dolls.
As it is, but people don't understand all of that. People need to get out and travel a little bit more.
Well, I'm getting back to the Ukraine, and before we went live, no, and Christy and I were, what my biggest concern is? Mm-hmm. Putin putting nuclear bomb on Ukraine.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that earlier today my sister was telling me something about North Korea readjusting and realigning their nuclear weapons toward Japan.
But what would that gain everybody? If that happens, guys, you got to buck up and say your goodbyes. And that's the way it's going to be because ain't nobody going to live. And if they do, billionaires will be in bunkers. And frankly, they'll all eat each other. Who the hell wants to live in a bunker for the rest of your life?
Well,
I mean,
I have an
Unfortunately.
opinion on this too, that in some ways isn't very popular, but I'm sure with what Dr. Vibe does, he'll explain the worst part I see of this, and not all men, but these certain two men we're speaking a lot of, and this toxic masculinity. And that's what I'm worried about, is this is just going to become like a big, like, ooh, look at me, I can be bigger than you. And the problem
Right.
is there's so many innocent people in the way of
Totally.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And ego, and I think in some ways that's a lot of what's driving those two men, which is just ego and ego and ego, and I don't know where that's going to get anybody at the table right now.
Well, you know what's
They're
scary?
clearly chodes. These men are chodes. Really.
But you know what's really scary is that is, like Jill mentioned before, the support of what 40 to 60% of Republicans for Putin. It in this country creates a problem because it's going to rile those people up so much. They're not going to go overseas. We're going to end up having a civil war in our own country.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because there's going to be all that toxic masculinity, like Chrissy said, and couple that with white male fragility, they're going to turn it inward.
I really, that's what's in the back of my mind in the situation, the nuclear. Because when I heard Chernobyl, I said, uh-oh.
But a nuclear bomb will end all of us. It won't just
But I'm
be
not
Ukraine.
so sure Putin cares, honestly, and that's my concern. I think his ego is so high right now that he thinks he's so powerful that he doesn't care.
But on one hand, I think that he does, because if the world is gone and he does this with nuclear weapons, there's no history to tell about him.
There's nobody to
He
listen
doesn't
to
get
it.
he doesn't get his story because no one's here.
No.
And I think, and that's what he
And
really
there's no
wants.
legacy.
Right. He's really
That's
about
true.
this legacy. He is really about this legacy, which is another reason why I bring it back to, I think the man is not well, because
You think?
no, I mean,
You
I mean,
think?
not mentally.
Okay.
I'm talking about physically, because
Okay.
it's like, it feels like he just really zoomed into wanting to establish a legacy, and his legacy, he wants to be to reconstitute the former USSR before he's done.
And the Cold War, remember growing up with that, was always about the fear that they were going to nuke us. It was a very big hand to hold over us. But let's be honest, we could do the same thing back. We had a guy, Donald Trump, who had some people in fear that he would do that to them. So let's not mistake. And there's Kim Jong-un. Let's be really, there's a few of them.
Yeah, yes, it was interesting.
Yeah.
I saw a picture the day of the supporters of Putin, and it was a very interesting group of people.
Who is it?
Well, Kim Jong-un,
Xi,
China,
and Trump.
Iran,
Iran, and the Venezuelan.
yes, all basically
the
dictators.
axis of evil.
All
the new-
dictators.
Yeah. The
Well,
new
and the
axis of
crazy
evil.
thing for us is we also think that some of this background work has to do with, if you look at the resources there, and the resources they can control. And that's happened in US and Canada with indigenous people there, and the ownership of different lands. It's kind of the same thing that's going on over there. If you look at the area Putin's after, those resources are rich for him to get his hands on.
They are.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why people also point to the colonization of Africa, because it has all the natural resources.
Well,
Yeah,
And
exactly.
China's done a real good job of that. Believe
Right.
me.
And
Well,
so-
then,
and
you know,
he's look-
one
he's
could
looking
only-
to invade Africa, some African countries right now, which should be scary. That brings us even more to the brink of a world war.
Well,
Jill?
one could say that, also in the middle of all of this, they need to have folks over there kind of already digging and moving some stuff out of the country. Don't think that that's not going on as well with Ukraine, that they're not taking some of their stuff and it's being moved elsewhere. It's not staying there. It's not.
I find it really...
Their soldiers are doing stuff to move resources, minerals, some things as well. That's happening. So whatever and where he's positioning, there's a reason. Now, the Chernobyl thing, yeah, it's pretty, first of all, like I was talking to a friend today, it was like, If you got a station to be stationed at Chernobyl, yo, you better think that they don't like you. What kind of allegiance do you have? They must be threatening your family in order for you to hold that position. Because, honey, my would be out. I would have surrendered to the Ukraine. So like, take me. I'm not going to stand over there guarding freaking toxic waste. What kind of Looney Tunes do they have standing over there who would even hold the scientists and hold them for what? No, thank you. You must be have the end of the stick in the army, because that's really a bad station.
You know what though? I think I think in all of this too, not only did Putin underestimate the Ukrainian people, but he also underestimated his own people and technology, because he got on state TV and said that Ukraine was full of drug addicts, Nazis, et cetera,
Right.
It's kind of like it's like we're in stereo or digital and the man is in mono, because it's like, dude, people still have access to the internet. You
Right.
try to control it, but they still have access to the internet and can see for themselves. It's not like it used to be when you controlled all aspects of people's information gathering.
He's so out of step with his people and with the world. It was like 1955. It was like, what? Am I going to see Walter Cronkite in a minute? Come on. Because he's out of step. And then his people are like marching and he's not in sync with them. This really only proved like, wow, the Russian people are like just sitting there themselves, like going, how the hell are we going to get rid of this man? Because they know that it's been in their hands for a long time. There's only so much we can do as a group of people outside of that, but he's a menace to all of us. But they got to really like do something. They're the ones who got him there. And then he decided to put himself in office forever until he dies. That was the first step that was slippery. That was crazy.
Look, all the townspeople need to go round up and surround his house at this point and be like, no,
he's out of step.
Because the truth of the matter is
the young people don't want that. They were all listening to the same music. They're all listening to trap music. They're doing their thing. And when you see that, I don't actually have to enjoy all the music. But when you see the 13 who were on Snake Island and somebody did a montage of them today and their music and their youth and their exuberance and their, hardness. The thing is, what's so incredible to me was, all these kids are kids and they ain't about this life of fighting for borders and over borders. And the only reason when they get ready to blow us all, nuke us all up, is when it's just about billionaires living the life on another planet, because poor people are going to rise up and say, we're tired of fighting rich people's wars and we don't want our kids to keep doing it for you.
And that's why you got all these billionaires going into space. They're looking for Planet B.
Yeah, and that other crazy, they had a NASA kind of guy from Russia who's threatening to, shoot down our space station. At that point, I'm sorry guys, but we got to go. You can't, somebody can't knock you down. It's like being in school. You teach your kids, get the hell up and you take your shot and you better make sure it's a good shot. And that's when you arm them with some plastic forks from the school cafeteria.
And look, if we go in, you think the Ukrainian draft of 18 to 65 was something,
Are you okay, Christy?
Make sure they got that between their knuckles. Like,
they don't have any indigenous moms completely get what she just said.
That's what we have to. We're going to have to do
plastic forks in the cafeteria.
Do you ladies see the West getting involved military wise in this conflict?
If they have to, they will, because I think that like Jill said, if he advances so far into Ukraine and comes up to the border of Poland and
Romania
and remains there and starts surrounding Poland, it's on.
And Romania, that he's not playing. the goof from Hungary already, is like he's an authoritarian leader. So he's already, Putin. That was expected. We know who those guys are going to be, but you've got to understand that we are in a conscious shift, and we've got to believe in that, whether our spirit guides tell us or whatever. And we all have to be very brave, because this is not for the faint of heart, what's going down. We have a lot of corrupt people. Don't you guys just wake up and go, where has this endorsement come from, where people are so amoral and, not even trying to be decent anymore? That when it starts to get reckless like this, that means somebody they think that it's ending. They think that, they're worried about something that we don't know they're close to.
All right, let's catch up with comments.
Real quick.
Okay.
What's even more scary is that Putin doesn't even have to use or create his own propaganda videos anymore. He's taking clips from American media.
It's true. It's true. Let's catch up with the comments. All of it rooted, Kristen saying, all of it rooted in sheer greed, power, and control. Tila saying, a man with no one to rule over doesn't make sense. Black Beauty, unfortunately, if Putin and the powers decide to use nukes, they'll be able to target the nuclear missiles at certain targets, therefore sparing mankind. We'll see. No more resources. Tila saying, Kristen, let's be careful. Care will never factor into social pathology. True. Black Beauty saying, it's really that Putin wants to allegedly restore Russia back to the 15 republics of the USSR. That's not going to happen. Also,
those countries aren't going back. They don't want to go back. That's the other part of it. The only way he can do it is by taking them.
Black Beauty also says Ukraine is also, as well as a blessed country with bountiful mineral resources. And Tila saying, good points, ladies. I
just want to finish one thing. You've got to remember that all Putin is doing is trying to make his surroundings a metaphor of who he is. So when you look at that and what he's doing, and that's why as an architect of the future, he's impotent, because he's squandering and squandered his opportunity to build an empire, or to build something that, it's like the guy from Kenya had said, he's talking about dead empires. It's so funny to say, wow, this dude has absolutely zero vision. People who are visionaries don't go back and grab from the past. That's not a visionary. I'll even have to give Elon Musk credit, which I rarely do, for being at least a visionary to think forward. These people are not visionary. Even Joe Biden is more of a visionary. He's about, I don't think I want to deal with war anymore. We've got to find a better way. That's a visionary, somebody who's looking for progress. But punk Putin, it's like, you haven't learned anything. You've been trolling around the KGB for how damn long? Like, this is all this has? Hiding behind nuclear weapons? Come on, guys. Come on. It's we can't even cast you outside. Let's cast you outside and see what you got.
The best way to describe it from an Indigenous standpoint, it's almost like here, if we put it into Indigenous standpoint, he's trying to really push through a treaty and enact an old treaty without consultation of the people.
Absolutely. And he's not even a great warrior, because he hasn't earned the right to be a warrior. That's what's so amazing to me. None of these guys pushing pencils. You're so right. That's why he can't there's no vision. Spirit guide and spirit from above that's going to guide the right way is not going to send you anything, but darkness will.
But remember, he also is still acting with the mind of being a KGB agent.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he's a low level. He's a middle manager.
He's still in that mindset. It's like he never took on the persona of a leader.
Right. Middle management. That's all he ever was, and he got the opportunity. Right. And now he's a company man. It's like, oh, for fuck's sake. Everybody knows the company man at their corporation. It's like they stay there forever. They've always dodged it when everybody else got cut or laid off. There's the company man. Somehow they made it through, but they're always just, it's like you go, wow, they don't really add or take away from anything. They're not, they just keep the same old okie doke going. He's okie doke. He's not a visionary.
And the other part of it that's super scary is that on this side of the ocean, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't see how come there is a fraction of people who don't, well, again, like Jill said, people don't know history. And so there is that faction of the country that doesn't realize that this is exactly what Adolf Hitler did, going into countries, and how he started going and moving into countries to take them over. Okay, this is how that happened. This here is the start of it. And who did Adolf Hitler start to blame? He started to blame the Jews. Well, guess what? Putin's out here saying there's a Nazi element that he has to take care of, right? So
these guys worship the
wading
Nazis.
into,
and I don't even think Hitler would have given them any respect. I don't even think he would have thought much of their leadership, because copying somebody is the word. It's not flattery. When you really think about it, this show has been played before.
Yeah,
this show has been played. He's not even different than that era. Yeah. There was Stalin, then there was Hitler. We still can differentiate those two. We can differentiate a few, Idi Amin. We can differentiate different people, from their horrors that they've done. But these guys are just, knockoffs. And it's like, wow, like, is this is your vision? But to see that you are a middle management guy from the KGB, and this is as far as you want to go, and you could have created harmony, peace, something really pretty amazing. You might have really gotten it on, but damn, it's really pretty bad, y'all.
He's not even middle management. He's a low-level bureaucrat. Yeah. That's exactly what he is. And I think that, and I think that we have to give credit where credit is due.
Right.
Zelensky for staying, because the United States offered to help move him somewhere, right? But the fact that he's like, no, I'm staying. The people are staying. You've got people who were in Poland, who are Ukrainian, going back to help fight. So Putin might have his in his mind how he thinks this is going to go, but the people of the Ukraine are very resilient right now, and they very much want to say, not even want to say, they're saying this is our land, and we are going to protect it.
I mean, let's be honest, even if he messes around with Chernobyl so much, what does that do to Belarus or Russia? They're all like, what the heck is going on? And why would Belarus support all that? Kazakhstan said, hang on a minute, y'all, slow your roll. It's like, China was like, can y'all go back to the table? Who else jumped in and was just like, this is just not the way to do this, because it's just not the way. And we got to know that there's maybe there's stuff we don't know.
And we've got to keep an eye on Kim Jong-un, because he's going to take advantage of the fact that everybody's eyes are over there.
Absolutely.
And he's going to move in. He's planning to swipe in underneath to do some stuff on his own toward Japan.
All right, let's just end off this segment. Christian saying he's speaking about Putin. He's trying to bring the Iron Curtain back. Green-eyed, haven't seen a bit. Good to have you back. Maybe 45 has shared classify he stole with Putin. We mentioned about that. If you, such as if will interfere in this slaughter. Cinema Canella, has anyone thought about the consequences to the countries Russia supports and provides goods and services to, like Cuba, Venezuela, etc.?
Well, Venezuela again supports what Putin's doing.
Yeah.
So they don't really care about their.
But so does Iran.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. But that's just a problem. But the Taliban doesn't. Okay. I will say the Taliban, that's how crazy this world is right now. The Taliban released their press release, which was like, we can't even hang with this. Get back and negotiate some more. So, everybody, I don't know, it's a very interesting time that we're living in. And sometimes you can see the ones that don't want to give up their dead empires and maybe move forward.
I mean, the world is full of crazy men, but we've got a real one here with this.
Well, like I say a lot these days, the more I know, the less I understand.
True.
I've got to that point these days. So, a lot of people commenting in real time. Please keep it coming. One last comment on this subject. We're going to be back on in a week, at least Jill, Aisha, myself. Hopefully Chris will be back. What do you see for the Ukraine a week from today?
Honestly, I can say that I don't know, because it really depends on the reaction Putin gets from the Ukrainian people, the reaction he gets from his own people, how the United States is going to handle it carefully. We're going to proceed with caution. They're going to keep ratcheting up the sanctions, but right now, like I said earlier, I think that they're weighing in the Situation Room if they need to go in, how they go in and get out.
Jill?
I definitely think some things will definitely go down this week, but my faith is in the power of love, and that we, with love and sending our energy of good energy to them, that we will persevere and help the Ukrainian people to persevere, and that, that miracles do happen for them, and something amazing, happens. I'm going to stay optimistic on this. And y'all know I'm a very pessimistic person. But for this moment, it's a moment that feels karmic. And for that purpose, I'm going to stand with justice, and I'm going to stand united on that, like warriors, we have to
Christy?
persevere.
Wow. I will be back next week because I do
okay, good.
Finish the second part of this. I'm praying. Some of the stuff I've seen about just as Jill said, I'm praying for all the parents who, if you need to send your kids with those plastic forks, just feeling for them right now. Mm-hmm. Just really, really praying that, they can find some sort of refuge and get out of the way of this huge, huge, huge conflict that, just so many innocent people. Although I will say, in the way of, I don't know if you've seen what happened over there with that one island when the Russian warship.
Yeah.
There's the 13 guys.
Yeah. And see, it's men like that. My heart was with them, right? Because that's the thing, is when men get into situations, and as a men's advocate, I will say, like Dr. Vibe will tell you, when you're fighting for your family, the things that those men will do, my prayers are absolutely with every single one of them who are out there trying to protect their families right now.
That was the montage video that I saw of them alive from there. Someone put of them as they had, obviously been posting things on social media. They were kids. And anybody who looks at that and tells me that they still support Putin after this can go to hell. Because those kids, it breaks my heart. And no.
Okay.
Unacceptable.
Let's continue on. Let's maybe have something more positive. Ketanji Brown selected as Joe Biden's pick for the Supreme Court of the United States. Thoughts?
She's a great candidate. She's almost immaculate. I got annoyed. Yesterday morning, when Mika Brzezinski announced on Morning Joe that this was, she was, a Harvard graduate and had an uncle that went to prison for cocaine possession. I'm like, what really? And Morning Joe is responsible for Trump I'll say that because they gave them all that platitude.
They're so passive aggressive.
When they turn around and do something like that, it's like, why is that the first thing you went to? You didn't talk about her accomplishments. The things that really count, for a justice, her knowledge of the law. She's tried cases. She'll be the first jurist in since Thurgood Marshall, who's actually been a trial attorney.
Yep.
And that, she rules with a very, very fair hand and steady hand on the law. And they didn't talk about those things, and that she was, they went right to the negative. And of course, the Republican Party is up here talking about, oh, we want to vet her thoroughly. And it's like, you know what, and make sure she's qualified. First of all, as Black people, we know we have to be 10 times qualified in order to just get a foot in the door. So I believe me, this woman is more than qualified. She's more qualified than anyone sitting on the bench at the present time. And in addition to that, I think the fact that we've got senators with the gall to say that they're really going to, drive hard. You're barely qualified to even be sitting in the Senate. What are you talking about? The only thing that you meet is the age requirement.
Right.
And they don't even read the Constitution or any of the full bills and laws that come before them, like the Supreme Court justices do. I'm not even sure Kavanaugh can read. All I know is he likes beer.
I know. We do know that. He's been doing beer commercials, right?
Right.
I like beer.
I mean,
I like beer.
Think about it. In his confirmation hearings, he spent 10 minutes talking about
beer.
About how much him and Squee like beer.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're going to grill this woman on such frivolous little tiny things. Oh, we read back in high school, you put the word "the" where you should have put "ah."
Right.
And it's going to be little nitpicky things like that, because what they're going to have to do, these same ones that are going to go hard on her, will have to account for the fact that, wait a second, it was just 4 or 6 months ago that you approved her,
right,
for a higher seat. So what's different now? What changed between now and then, aside from the fact that Joe Biden said he was going to appoint a Black woman to the Supreme Court?
I think it says a lot that this is the first time in history a Black woman has maybe that just says enough about America right there. And
think about it. She talks about Constance Motley, who was born here in New Haven, like I was, and the fact that she really should have been the first Black woman appointed to the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm.
Jill?
Well, I have to admit, I don't know a ton about her or any of this whole justice thing. I'm still learning. It's a learning curve. I feel like keeping up with current events is like a full-time job.
Yeah.
And I like her vibe. I like what I have read about her. I love her voice. I think she's very cute. She's adorable. And I think she has grit. So sometimes grit can be far more important than having the talent. When you have grit, you can get knocked down and get right back up. She has the grit, and she's very well faceted. She's probably the most well-rounded judge that we have. We're in a different, like I keep talking about this shift. We're in a new ground, new territories, because we always, people who are indigenous or people of color, have to walk around with the burden of representation. We have to represent everybody. And God forbid somebody in your family went to prison or got arrested or locked up and whatever. It's the burden of representation. They represent every bad thing gets deflected and pushed on us. I think it's time we start turning the tables and asking them too. So, Kavanaugh, was this one locked up in your family for domestic violence? I think the deep digging that they do, I think every media outlet should be digging very deeply on every senator that's sitting up there right now getting ready to ask those questions. I think it should be on headline news every day about somebody in their families accused of white collar crime, how it overlaps, how it's connected, more 9 times than 10, how somebody committed some kind of stock fraud. Trust me, it's just time to fight back hard. You got to give people back what they're giving you.
And think about this too. We have.
I ain't about that life anymore, about trying to smile and be a people pleaser, because if they were doing me, asking me to go on the Supreme Court, that would be a hostile confirmation. That would just be
Yeah.
what?
You? Hostile?
Yeah, that'd be hostile.
But think about it.
Who is you? Who is you?
But we've got 2 members of the Supreme Court right now that both had either a sexual harassment or sexual assault.
Exactly. Just
Okay.
ask them back. One of those old funky dead, like
They had
I would
confirmation hearings
appreciate
for
that.
them about those things and lowballed them. Okay, so to go hard on her, nobody's accused her of sexual harassment or assault.
We need a clapback queen. I mean, in something, because, and I know nobody wants that, because we're always with this burden of representation. We have to speak well. We have to dress well. We have to do everything properly. We can't even have our own slang anymore. We can't even, because they take it all and house it, and then if we do, then they're going to come back and say, you were sitting at a lunchroom table in high school with the black kids in the cafeteria, and were you really segregating yourself? Because this is what they do. And, it's just, this is how messed up this country has become. And also this lack of, did white people not live on this planet before? Why are they pointing out these things as if they're such horrible things and flaws? They do it with everybody. They do it with indigenous people. They do it, we are assimilating into what? Y'all the ones using our stuff and our products and our hair care. Y'all the one doing everything. Y'all the ones stealing folks' land.
And not to mention, 1/3 of the people who will be in that Senate hearing have questions.
Wait, they were the ones who went and paid natives to get in, and so they could buy houses here, $5, and to pretend they were Indian. Yeah.
But they're very questionable. A lot of people who are in Congress who are going to be presenting that, because a lot of them are involved currently in white collar crime.
Christy, speak up.
All right.
Come on.
I'm trying to, but I don't want to cut the girls off.
Yeah, I'm done. Cut me off. It's fine.
Well, it goes back to what Jill's saying. One thing I always notice with us too is that you always see, and I'm sorry, this is something that comes from our community, is whiteness. And what we call that is it's a white witness to any achievements we've done to prove that, we're valid enough. I'm sure the girls know what I mean, that,
yes, I do.
For us, you need a whiteness all the time to validate you as an ethnic person.
Mediocrity and whiteness also go together hand in hand when it comes to these kinds of positions, because I promise you, the majority of our House and Senate are mediocre white men. And the fact that there is this more accomplished, stellar Black woman sitting before them is something they can't handle.
No, I see Kristen is talking about the fact that, I know Dr. Vibe is going to read it, but I'm going to just put it this way, since she's talking about that these women are not old. I'm expecting them to say, your iPod had the whispers on, and then you had Prince and Michael Jackson. Who,
you had a Prince song that said the F word on.
Yeah, exactly. You used to listen to, I'm expecting.
Yeah, I do.
Because it's becoming more and more like, didn't you go to a Prince concert?
It's really going to be interesting to see what Republicans use to try to block
Public Enemy
this
song.
Yeah.
You are radical.
It's just gonna be, and it's either gonna show where America's really at.
Petty. That's what it's gonna show. They're petty.
Okay, comments. Black Beauty. I totally love Ms. Brown's intelligence, and Ms. Brown mentioned that her uncle that has imprisoned, as well as other uncles who are in law enforcement. Ms. Brown mentioned both relatives in her acceptance speech.
Yeah, she beat him to it.
And
It's out there.
Miss Brown anticipated the media would try to drag the past of her uncle through the mud. So good for having her mention it first. Cinema says, when the world gets ruled by women, it's going to be paradise. Well, not all, but because I was, well, the CPAC is happening this weekend. We're not going to talk about that tonight, but there was one of Jill's favorite. I saw her on the stage. I just went, oh my goodness.
Oh, she wasn't at CPAC. She was at a white nationalist, white supremacist rally.
Nancy Neanderthal.
I'm not okay. Stop.
Okay,
Kristen.
right.
That's next week. Kristen says, Black, a woman uses her voice and not over 70 years old. Of course, they're going to rest on their power and privilege laurels to push shame and shade. Next call to action should be to vet all of them sitting high in their seats.
No, all I gotta say is vet them at the ballot box. Get some of these people out.
And Tila's saying, LOL, Jill. Okay. So do you think she'll get through?
Yeah. Yeah. And the reason I say that is because
I'm going to do the Linus dance.
I say the reason I say yes is this because the ones who are going to be questioning her are not the only ones voting. We're going to see them, and we're going to see them act a damn fool during these confirmation hearings. But remember, it's just the Judiciary Committee that does the confirmation hearings. Other people get to vote. And I think that you've got people who are hardcore going to be like, oh, well, you've got Lindsey Graham talking out the side of his neck. but Lindsey Graham, I happen to know, owes a favor to Jim Clyburn. So that vote, he might talk a big game to save face.
Is it true that she's a distant relative of Paul Ryan? Is that what I heard? Is that true?
Is it her?
That by marriage?
I don't know if it is her or not. I know someone who's in the judiciary is related. I'll see if I can find that out before we end tonight. But it may be her. It may be. I will check on that.
Mm-hmm.
I will check on that. But yeah,
because then I would like to say, what is your recipe for mac and cheese at Thanksgiving? That's all. What is it? And that will determine for me.
But I think the marriage might be through her husband. I think the marriage might be through her husband. I said,
if they do, you all bring mac and cheese.
That's it.
Yeah, no, but I think it might be through her husband because her husband is white.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Like I said, my husband is not a big mac and cheese fan, but I bring it, I cook it, I do whatever, you know?
Okay.
I have to tell him it's manicotti.
So her husband, okay, so it's saying here that she is related to Paul Ryan. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, she is. I'll find out. But Jackson has a lot, yeah. Ryan's across the side. That's all respect for Jackson stems from the connection. Jackson and Ryan are related by marriage. Jackson's husband has a twin brother who is married to Ryan's wife's sister.
And the question is, whose family do they go to on Thanksgiving?
Well, the way that she spoke about her family,
yeah,
I kind of think they go to her family's house.
Okay, good. So her husband's probably got some flavor.
Okay. Yeah, let's move on. Oh, hold on. There's some comments here. This is Jill, you're crazy. Yes. Okay, we got that. Cinema Canella. Thank you for looking that up for us. Yeah, our husband's twin brother wife is. Okay, we got that. Next up, oh boy. Ahmaud Arbery's 3 killers are found guilty of federal hate crimes. Surprise at all?
No, I'm not. Because and the reason I say that is because the evidence that they did not use in the murder trial was blatant and very obvious that they'd had this, all the text messages and emails and things. They put it in writing. Okay. So it's not that someone could just say, oh, well, maybe he looked at you funny. Maybe it was, like it was a microaggression or something. No, they put it in writing. And the son, Travis, did talk about doing away with Black people, i.e. murder. So that was a strict violation of the federal hate crime. Because remember, the federal hate crime, they were not looking at him, they were not trying him for murder. They tried them just for the hate that led to the killing. I'm wondering though what the sentencing is going to be, because remember when Dylan Roof killed the 9 people in Charleston at Mother Emanuel AME Church, Nikki Haley rushed to get the trial through so that the state murder trial through, because they were going to seek the death penalty. And then the federal government on the hate crime statute also sought the death penalty. And so there was that kind of battle over jurisdiction for a little while. But I wonder what the sentencing is going to be on this one. Will they get the death penalty?
I don't know if that'll happen.
No. I think that Lady Justice was really busy last week and did some great things. George Floyd's police officers, they were found guilty.
Yes, that's true. Yes.
My biggest problem is really what we're looking at is how out of sync and out of step leadership in not just our country, but across the board, like we talked about Russia and in Canada as well. It's out of step with what the people are showing them, it's like, or trying to, and the media is getting involved in manipulating all of that. But I think that people are speaking up and saying, we are decent people, these people should be thrown in jail. And then the sentencing is where the problem, and in the enforcement of the laws is where we're having the breakdown of what we've already established. There's a real resistance in the white people to enforce laws on their own. They don't want to. I don't get it.
Well, it's the same way that they don't want their kids to feel bad about
learning about slavery,
learning about white people keeping Black people in slavery. I'll tell this story real quick. On Medium, a woman wrote this story about her daughter being in denial of her whiteness. And basically her daughter said to her that she admired Harriet Tubman, and she asked her why. She's like, and then they got into this conversation, and the daughter's like 6 years old, and the mother's like, well, you're white. And she's like, no, I'm not, I'm tan. And the mother says, no, you're white. She's like, well, no, because the white people in the book did bad things. Well, guess what? You got to adjust to that. That's no different than my cousin, when she was little, came to me and asked about the people in the chains that she saw in her history book. So white people in this country we hope that they would get used to other people being here when they came and took over this land. They still haven't, and they passed that discomfort with the rest of the people in society down to their children. And it's a perpetual cycle. And until we have a system where justice is meted out fairly, it's never going to change. This is, what happened with Ahmaud Arbery's, the killers being found guilty of federal hate crime, is it's an inconsistent ruling, right? Because we don't see these rulings very often. In some of these other cases, the federal government won't even venture to investigate. They won't even charge. And then you think about the number of cold civil rights cases from the 60s, right? That they have just decided, oh, we'll open them, but we're not going to met justice out because most of those people are dead. So it's that kind of inconsistency, I think, in our justice system that gives white people a false sense of security, or an accurate sense of security, because it really does not apply to them evenly.
Christy, can you jump in here from an indigenous lens in regards to this? Because there are many, many injustices that have continued to happen And I think even last week you had mentioned one or two cases. Could you bring one or two of them to light to our audience?
Yeah. So one I'd like to talk about is the Colton Boushie case, and that happened out west here in Canada. It was a few young boys who were on a white farmer's property in an urban like areas. So as we know, young boys, I'm sure you know Dr. Vibe, they get drinking, they get joyriding, all of that. This man found them on the property, assumed that they were there to steal, which I mean, in some ways I can understand. But Colton Boushie was passed out drunk in the passenger seat of the car and was shot point blank by the farmer.
Wow.
Whoa.
And was found not guilty here in Canada.
Based
It's
on
kind of like
what?
our stand the ground laws here. Stand your ground.
There is a case right now going on in London, Ontario. So my home city. The woman is actually from my own home community. She is a relative. Unfortunately, Indigenous woman who was battling addictions. There was a police officer in London who was found guilty for not rendering aid to her while she was actually in an overdose and just assumed she was on a bad trip. She's a mother of 11. He has still not served a single day in jail. He is still getting paid, and now he's appealing on the fact that she probably would have died anyway.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that's what they tried to do with I forget what case it was, but actually it was a case here right in my own hometown, the Malik Jones case. And the city went to settle with his mother. Police officers chased him across town lines and murdered him. Police from another city murdered him in our city, which is where he lived, because he was trying to get home. But they settled with his mother. They gave his mother an initial settlement amount, and their reason for that amount was they were saying, well, he would have died young anyway. He's a black male who's going to die young anyway. He wouldn't have made it to 25.
And it's
And
crazy
that's-
in Canada.
yeah.
Like, we have these cases going on just about every day. Like, it's just crazy. We got the Tina Fontaine case. We have missing or Indigenous women cases continually. Once we get actually into our, I think, the end topic, I'll be speaking more about that and that issue. And it's just crazy. Like, here in Canada, we have a really, really deep rooted systemic racism system in place, especially towards Indigenous people. Like, it's just crazy the stuff Indigenous people, even myself, have gone through. I think a lot of Canadians don't actually realize what's going on, because Canada does have us segregated into reserves and boxes. I pointed out to somebody in the last week, and Aisha, I'm sure you understand this perspective. As a children's author, I don't know why I can't just go somewhere and be Christy White, the children's author. I have to get in my box, which is Christy White, the Indigenous children's author.
Right.
And the problem with that is you got to remember there's only so many spots for that, and that's never an A-listing list to be on. And here in Canada, we do it all the time. We make, Juno Awards, Indigenous categories to separate them from mainstream artists. Well, I'm sorry, a blues artist who I'm sure Jill can attest, who wins a Juno, no matter what category, is a blues artist.
Exactly.
So again, the racism and that kind of thing, like, I mean, when that ruling came down, like, we felt for you guys, as I said last week, because
It
here
is
in
weird.
Canada, Indigenous mothers across Canada cried when that ruling came down about Colton Boushie. He was a young boy that we, like, all our sons have been there at one point or another, and they just made it out that his life meant absolutely nothing because he was an Indigenous young male. And we have it repeatedly and repeatedly and repeatedly. So we have so many of these cases. Like, I mean, you can see it just about every day. If you were to Google what's going on in Wet'suwet'en right now, with the pipelines there, RCMP are there manhandling Indigenous women and men and elders, and like you've never seen. And that's the take. I know you guys seen it with Standing Rock. And unfortunately,
Yes.
that is the same stance they take here in Canada at all Indigenous events.
I mean,
So
let's be honest, our Standing Rock thing was pretty horrific. What we did not do. It was horrible what America did during that, and did not try to heal. And not
Well,
your serial killers for the
yeah.
indigenous women, the missing women. That's not been taken seriously.
Well, it's crazy. Jill, I think it was Jill or Aisha had mentioned something last week about, political prisoners or something that had come about. And the first person I thought of is a lot of people, especially in the U.S., don't realize that Leonard Peltier is still a political prisoner.
I know.
He's never been tried. And
Yeah.
it was all because he started the AIM movement, which is the American Indian movement.
Mm-hmm.
And
He pissed somebody off.
Here to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
He
that's
pissed
the
off
that's the
somebody.
inconsistency in our legal system here in this country, is that we will hold people on it's like Khalif Brower. He was held in prison all those for 3 years, and they never
Mhm.
tried him. They never even did the bond or bail hearing. They just held him in prison for that time until they finally did set a bond, and his family couldn't afford it. So, and we saw how that ended up. He got out and he committed suicide because just
He
being
did.
locked in
Well,
jail
the
for all
hell
that
that he
time.
went through.
And here in
We
Canada,
don't know.
just to give you an idea of how bad the racism is, especially for Indigenous, when you think of like population and numbers, Indigenous people only make up 7% of the whole Canadian population. Yet 60% of the people incarcerated in jails right now are Indigenous people.
Mhm.
And 65% of the children in care right now are Indigenous children.
Right.
And if
And
we
that's
only
across
make
the
up
world,
7% all across Canada, when
Yeah.
you really break that down, it's just residential school and genocide all over, and it's happening in front of everybody. And again, it's complacent. And again, you have mothers who are seeing these rulings of how their children's lives really didn't mean anything. With the Tina Fontaine case, that brought to light that with society, they don't keep an eye on Indigenous children who have aged out of care that are supposed to be in their care.
No.
She was killed in a hotel room.
Yeah.
Her worker hadn't checked on her in probably about 6 months.
Right.
So these are the kinds of things that's really, really rooted here. So I completely feel as an ethnic mom, like it's unfortunate for us. We have to teach our young, especially our young men, a number to a lawyer before you can teach them a number to like a mental health line or, a doctor or somebody
Right.
who can give them that kind of help, because the help they're going to need is a lawyer at some point.
Right.
And every Indigenous female and all of them now, I was talking to a friend, my children had to learn that by like 10, 11 years old. I started teaching them what they had to tell the police, what they didn't have to be respectful, don't make any fast gestures, those kinds of things. And I thought every parent was doing it because all my family was doing it. I didn't realize that
Right.
Western children aren't prepared in that way because they don't have that kind of conflict.
No.
Mm.
Yeah.
So Kristen says Indigenous and female double whammy checkbox.
Totally.
And Black Beauty saying, Christy, thank you so much for shedding light on how there are so many Indigenous lives being devalued. Sad, so sad.
Awful.
Let's move on to our final conversation topic. The trucker protests in Canada that are trying to come down to the United States. Christy wants first. Go ahead, Christy.
Yes.
Well, it just goes back to my other conversation of the fact is, if you look at the history in Canada, I find it interesting with a bunch of people convoying who were being paid to convoy to the Capitol to have like a big party. One of our Iroquois war chiefs, one of the things he said was that, he was really upset that the way the police handled that. And we're taught as traditional people not to involve ourselves in their politics because we prefer them not to involve themselves in our politics.
Right.
So one of the things he said is, oh my goodness, did you see they were having a barbecue and asking that man to resign and the police just went in there?
True.
And what does that say? This
It
is an
says that
Indigenous man that's seen conflict all over Canada and was like, they were having a party asking this guy to resign and the police just came in and treated them like that.
Yeah.
And it didn't help that Americans were really pushing this,
Paying for it.
pushing it, paying for it, sending people up there to go protest with them. But
And here in London, we
they
have
lost.
In London, if you look it up, we have 3 Indigenous communities outside of London. We also have one in Brantford, which I mean isn't far from London. And now we have, since this whole rally, I don't know if Dr. Vibe's seen it on the news, but London now has houses popping up with swastikas flying.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I just want to say really quick, Christy, we have a Brantford here too.
So it's things like that. Again, they went down there, they inconvenienced all kinds of people. It went on for, okay, Vibe, you may have to, was it 3 weeks? 3 weeks they got to stay there? I've been on frontline protest face to face with RCMP, and usually within 24 hours, they make their presence known for us and are trying to move us. It was really interesting to see their take on this, how they treated it. It was also interesting to see the Canadian side and what they thought of freedom and what that actually looked like to them. And I have a whole new standard, let me tell you, as a land protector. I expect a packed lunch, very nice words of encouragement, and letters written to me of support from Canadians while I'm standing on the front line tangling with RCMP for your freedom of water and land.
Yes.
Because you can't drink oil.
No, you can't.
Right.
But it is unearthing something in Canada that I don't know if I don't know culturally how the people, like I could say the English temperament that is more like, don't talk about this, we'll muddle through. The French are a certain temperament. So I'm not sure what the temperament of Canadians might be. You know, what they want, the cultural thing, like we don't talk about that, or we're going to, something is being revealed to them right now where they're a little bit like, it's in their faces and they're not handling it very well.
Well, Dr. Vibe, do you know what our new residential school numbers is right now?
Tell me.
Over 9,000.
Wow.
And that's between the US and Canada.
What is that?
The unmarked graves that they're uncovering right now, they're scanning residential schools
At
and down in
9,000.
the States, they were
Still
called
not, now
Indian
it's
orphan
9,000.
schools.
Yes. We talked about that, but it's up to 9,000.
Yes. And the TRC here in Canada only reported there would probably be about 3,000 maybe. So we are well over the community that my family was sent to for residential school, which was in Brantford. They call it the Mush Hole. They just did a whole bunch of surveying. We're actually in the process of waiting for that data to be looked at and given over to us to figure out from there. We also have one, Mount Elgin, which is a Muncie. So again, it's really crazy, especially for Indigenous people, when this whole thing came about and the whole ideas around freedom and the way they went about it, like holding Ottawa citizens hostage. Like I have friends who live in the Decore area who, were tortured, like sound tortured for hours.
Oh my God.
My son, who's autistic, lives by the University in Toronto.
Was horrible.
Horns constantly. Unfortunately, I know a father, and he did say I could bring this up, in Ottawa, who was on the brink of taking his life because he took out a second mortgage to get his child ABA therapy, which is a therapy for autistic children. And that therapy can only happen before the age of 6 or 7, because then they know that the therapy isn't as effective. So this man took out a second mortgage for this therapy for his son, and his son was doing well, and the truckers undid it in a week.
Oh my God.
And nobody has $60,000 to give this father back to get his son back on track.
Right.
And of course, when you introduce the United States into any occasion, we up. So basically, the U.S. truckers decided that they were going to try and do something here today.
Yeah.
And when one of these truckers was interviewed, someone said, "So why are you, doing the convoy to the U.S.?" "Well, I'm here to do it because I'm against vaccines, I'm against masks and CRT." And
Really?
it was just
really?
Yeah,
Really?
that's what he said. And I
Yeah.
was just like, wow. So I'm sure he was the one lone trucker that drove from Pennsylvania to DC.
We did have one loan,
They
right?
only had one from Pennsylvania. They had the convoy that came from California, but people dropped off as it was going. So today was their first day of doing it, and it was an utter Donald Trump type disaster.
But do you know why that happened? Half your
Mhm.
truckers are stuck here at our borders because they were so smart to forget that the laws were changing when they were over here at the convoy. They can't get back. They're not vaccinated, and they don't have Canadian coverage for vaccination.
No.
But
And
guess
the
what?
gas prices here are like $6 now. So they just
But
must have
guess
been
what?
like,
That's why they couldn't go. They couldn't afford the gas. But this is the part that really gets me. How did CRT's like, why am I in this? How did I do this?
Exactly.
I don't get it. It's just like, I'm telling you, I
Although
them a
I
few
honestly
names.
have the opinion everybody who truly was there fighting for freedom should really look at Ukraine and see how they can help, because they're all about freedom.
Yeah, these unnecessary gripes are really just,
They are gripes.
it is the I want to know how much we have to indulge
Of
white men
stupidity.
like these kind of white men. I wonder how much longer do we have to indulge this whiny, crazy bull?
12
that they are
years if we
constantly
go by
coming up with?
astrology.
It's like, you know what? Go sit down somewhere.
It's a cycle. It's like
Period.
the Uranus of a generation. Uranus. It's a cycle. And this Pluto and Saturn together. Sorry guys, but Saturn is always about destroying infrastructure. Saturn is the planet that will be like, you think you're hot? Let me show you that you're not. And Pluto comes in to just, we have some major crazy conjunctions happening that we haven't seen.
When did they stop spinning out of control? Because they've been out of control.
It's a 12-year cycle, and it's been going since Trump came in. So
No,
we've got about
it's been going since Obama was elected.
But the
Remember,
actual
that was
cycle
the
with
beginning.
Saturn going back and forth with even Aquarius balancing back from Capricorn to Aquarius, because the fact is Saturn is sitting in Capricorn, which is all business. Saturn are people who got their together. It's all about commerce. And the problem that there is a book called The Return of Saturn. And if you just want to look at just throughout history, how they've actually tracked the position of that planet. And I give it to you as a gift. Everybody who reads this book, it's a blessing that I am recommending it. That you find it. That means that you were supposed to hear about it. It is a book that shows that even if you don't believe in astrology or whatever, there is something really bizarre about the placements of something about Saturn. And, many of our leaders globally, all of them have somebody who's usually a tarot reader or a spirit reader or somebody who helps them make a decision to go into war. That's why when you look at even Putin with 20 to all those twos, it's not willy-nilly. What's her face who was with Reagan? She relied on them heavily, Nancy Reagan. She wouldn't make a move. She was basically running the country, Nancy.
Right.
Well, we
Kristen
know that
saying,
now that Ronald was,
Kristen saying a convoy that was allegedly sent a message to the Canadian government about truckers fighting the COVID vaccination mandates, all the while to where the majority of Canadian truckers are reported to be vaccinated.
Exactly. That was so weird.
Yeah.
That was strange.
That's kind of like what was it that
what were they trying to do to Trudeau? Like just back him into a wall? What was that strategy?
Yeah, what was that about?
Yeah.
I think that's what they were trying to do, back him into a wall and make him change. But again, a lot of it is at the provincial level, not at the federal level, right?
Which is why I'm with Vibe on laughing that they all headed to Ottawa, because they actually needed to go to Toronto, but they didn't figure out that until later on.
Really?
Yeah, Toronto is the provincial capital of Ontario, not Ottawa.
Yeah,
but
that's how crazy this was. And on top of that, from an indigenous side, from like murdered and missing indigenous women side, it was funny because I was reminding these truckers that if we're going to talk about freedom, we need to talk about accountability. And the biggest thing that came out of the murdered and missing indigenous women inquiry was one of the main contributors was truckers. Because when they're in, so I was just reminding them while they're going there and talking about freedom that they could talk to their buddies about holding each other responsible and accountable for how they treat women when they're in those, northern communities.
Yeah.
Because it was interesting that yet again, they were flexing their white privilege across Canada and having a party.
Toxic masculinity.
Even in that, reminding them that, yeah, you flex your privilege, and that's why a good portion of Indigenous women end up murdered and missing.
Yep. And one of them in the group is killing them, or a couple of them.
Well, toxic masculinity and white male fragility go hand in hand. And
isn't that crazy?
And when they get a good dose of it, you get ignorant, like what we see happening across our country with these stop woke laws and don't say gay and don't do this and guess what? I don't want my kid to learn about history because it's going to hurt their feelings. No, you don't want your kid to learn about history because they're going to look at that picture of Elizabeth Eckford walking to Central High School and see your contorted face screaming at her in the back and wondering, Grandma, why were you doing this?
Yeah.
Kristen says,
with us teaching our children, I mean, not all truckers are bad or whatever, but again, those good guys out there could start, holding those other guys accountable.
It's true.
Kristen says, I feel bad in a way to say, quote, the truckers, unquote. The truckers have historically had it pretty rough with government regs, social treatment, etc. The truckers were used to bring this forward, this farce of freedom by white nationalists.
Yeah, it was a bit embarrassing.
This is something that they're bringing on themselves right now. This is something they're bringing upon themselves right now. The other part with government regulations, well, that was the government. They started this.
They got totally exploited, and I'm like, wow. What did they not see that? I mean, they really got clowned. Ultimately,
yeah. So I don't think this one in America will last.
And ours in America won't do it.
It won't last.
They can't afford it at the moment.
Yeah,
it's too
can't
expensive.
Afford it. And also, too, if CRT is going to be one of the reasons that they're venturing to PC for, guess what? It's a waste of time because CRT is not anything taught in any of our K-12 schools. It's a legal theory. So unless your kid's going to law school already at age 7.
Christy just told me she went viral on TikTok with a video that I just saw of, it was a review of her book that people were talking. It's called Good Hair, or what was it? It's called Good Hair.
Boys and Braids.
Yes. And someone reviewed it and thought, this is brilliant. And I'm telling you, TikTok will have CRT on there. It'll have it all for everybody because it gets it done and said in 6 seconds. And that's all people want anyway. And you know what? All their kids are going to know about it because put it to some music and there you go.
Yeah. And it's funny because I was watching Danielle Moody's Instagram live the other day, and this troll got on there. He just kept saying CRT is racist. I said, can you tell me what CRT is? It's racist.
He probably didn't even know what the acronym. Did he know even what the acronym stands for?
He knew it was critical race theory, but he gave some definition that it's racism towards white people. I'm like, no, when you can open a book and actually tell me what it means, then don't talk about it.
He's got to find a book first.
Right. He's got to find the ability to read.
Yes, that too.
He clearly was illiterate, and this is the damage again that we have talked about time and time again of the Republican Party and their coded language, their dog whistles. That it's like, oh, somebody mentioned critical race theory. Oh, we're gonna use that, and we're gonna use it as a catch-all phrase for things that we just don't like about people of color.
What makes me so sick in this country and across the world, like when we talked about Putin not being a progressive thinker or even factoring in things that to make just the world a better place. It's like on Netflix, there's a film, or HBO, Hulu, one of them, about children of deaf parents who have to sign and are taking accountability, being accountable for their parents and things like that. These are amazing stories that we are being blessed to hear about. And for me, I immediately hear these things and go, oh my God, we can make things better for these people. We can, have different programs, but we don't even have agencies in here that are already ready to implement these things to be so helpful to people who are born in the world a certain way, and to make it easier for them, make their lives better. I just don't get the hate for wanting people to have jacked up lives. I don't understand it.
And there's also this, it's weird, this strange desire to want to go back to the 50s and 60s as if that was the glory days. Weren't your ancestors still having outhouses?
Well, to be honest with you,
y'all didn't have running water down in the Delta in Mississippi. Back to what?
Well, that's the worst part of it.
I mean,
you can excuse people for some of their past great things that they did out of ignorance. But why this generation is particularly more lethal and more horrific than their ancestors is because they know better and they don't want to change it. And that is why I find it really frightening. We actually have things like, wow, you have since moved into this arena where you know this is wrong to do this. It's kind of like somebody who continues to eat human beings, and they continue, and you're just like, oh, okay, we told you this is not on. And, and they keep on. So there's a problem here. They're lethal because they don't want to change it. Mm-hmm. And that is a dangerous road to be on right now.
And doing something, look, you can do something in your past, grow from it, and not be the same person.
Absolutely.
But when a person is consistently doing the same thing over and over and over again, that is a pattern. That is part of their personality. It's part of their mental DNA. Okay, they're not coming out of that because they don't want to.
It's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing the same way, expecting a different outcome.
Kristen said, we said about the truckers. Kristen goes, bingo, Dr. Vibe, the truckers needed to head to Doug Ford's office. Agreed. T-Lyle is saying, so Joe, we have 7 more years left of this Saturn-ish.
Okay. We have a while, and it's going to go back and forth with Aquarius, because anyone who knows anything about Aquarius, it is about progress. It is about, I don't want to do things the same way we used to do them. It's the kinky one in the bedroom. It's like, I'm bored. I want to do it differently. Let's move on. That's where we are. We are in between tradition and Aquarius going, give me something new. So that can be kind of volatile as well.
All right. And last comment for the evening. I just don't see how any informed woke American is going to be hanging out in DC caping for those truckers.
Look, don't say woke, because pretty soon that word will be against the law.
That's true.
Yeah. Wouldn't be surprised. Surprised. Well, we's done. We started late, but we always end on time.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, we whenever we finish, it's the right time. I'd like to say, as always, thank you to Christy, Jill, Aisha. Thank you, Christy, for adding great commentary. You said you're going to be back next week?
Absolutely.
Yay.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
All right. So first things first, Christy, how can people get in touch with you?
I am on Facebook and Instagram, either under Jane Gizmo Books or just under my name, Christy White.
Wonderful. Jill Jones.
I'm on Twitter, Jill D. Jones, or Jill Jones Music on Instagram.
Wonderful. Aisha K. Staggers.
I'm at Aisha Staggers on Twitter, AK Staggers on Instagram.
Wonderful. And myself, you can catch me. I'm the host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show. You can catch me best places at my website, www.thedrvibeshow.com. Want to shout to the as many people as I can that were on live tonight. Jen, Tila, Kristen, Black Beauty. Who else did we have? Cinema Canella. Who else did we have? I know there was a gentleman that was on. William was on, and also Ira Timothy was on. Thank you for your great commentary tonight, making it an epic conversation. Oh, Black Beauty saying thanks for having this spot to hang out on Saturday night, Dr. But well, it's not me, it's everybody. It's the whole family. And thanks for all of you hanging out. Also, Jen Meyer says, fabulous conversation, everyone. Thank you, Jen. And Tila saying, great, informative, and fun show. Thanks, y'all. Thank y'all. Thank you so much for taking time out of your positive, productive schedule. And if you want to catch replays of this conversation, you can watch replays at the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and Facebook, and the Dr. Vibe Show, the website address, the drvibeshow.com. As always, I like to end off the conversations like this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions and aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Remember to give yourselves grace. And always remember, do not manage your time. Manage your energy. Looking forward to seeing everybody next week in and around. We'll try to start at 9 o'clock on time this time. Just speak it now. No technical challenges. We'll see you next week. God bless. Peace be well. Keep the faith and walk good.